So there's been a lot of chatter going on around the league about Anthony Davis's future with the Dallas Mavericks now that Nico Harrison has been fired, and even though Mark Cuban has stated they have no intention on trading Anthony Davis, in my opinion, they're going to trade AD whether it be at the deadline or in the offseason. But either way, the Bulls were one of the teams that have been linked to a potential Anthony Davis trade, but for a while, those were just rumors, speculation, and analysts stating their thoughts on what they felt made the most sense from a practicality and fit standpoint. There really wasn't any reporting or sources confirming that the Bulls front office was actively engaging in trade discussions with the Dallas Mavericks for Anthony Davis's services. But, as I'm sure most of you have seen by now, ESPN's Jamal Collier, who covers the Midwest region, put out an extensive article highlighting and confirming that the Bulls have had internal conversations about how to proceed, including conversations about Anthony Davis, who they believe could help the Bulls' lackluster interior defense. Now, he did also add that the Bulls are not willing to sacrifice any of their young core to execute such deal, which is good. The last thing you want to hear is that the Bulls believe that making an all-in move for Anthony Davis is somehow going to make them a contender, and it's worth giving up most of their young talent. But to me, the Bulls being interested or having conversations around trading for Anthony Davis wasn't what was troubling in that article. What was more concerning to me was the fact that Collier called out how the Bulls believe they have the blueprint, the formula to replicate what the Pacers did last season, saying the Bulls believe they have their Tyrese Halliburton and Josh Giddey, which, okay, I'll get to that in a little bit, and that they're now searching for their Pascal Siakam, which the article suggests would be Anthony Davis. Now, I already did a whole video on why I think it would be a big mistake, a disaster really for the Bulls to trade for AD at his age, injury history, and max contract, especially after the Bulls finally were able to regain control of all their first-round picks and have set themselves up to have ample cap flexibility going into 2026. I still stand by that. I think it would be a big mistake because we know the Bulls would have to give up first-round picks to get Anthony Davis, which the Bulls should not be in the business of trading away first-round picks given their current state. But regardless of the Bulls' pursuit of AD, if they actually believe, if the front office truly believes that they have a formula to repeat what the Pacers have done, I cannot tell you how flawed that logic is, and it's truly troubling if this is the approach that you're going to be taking this season. First of all, you should never just copycat another team's system. I know it's a copycat league, we all like to say that, but you should never just try and be some other team, because what worked for another team doesn't mean that it's going to work for you unless you actually have the same players from that team that you're trying to be. Build your own way, develop and create your own identity. That's number one. But number two, don't get me wrong, I love Josh Giddey. I've always been higher on him than most Bulls fans and believe he is a star-level player that really elevates the offense. But Tyrese Halliburton is a very special player. Maybe Josh Giddey can get to that level as he's only continued to get better and better since being traded to Chicago, but he's not on that level. Halliburton is much more fluid and dynamic with the ball on offense. Both are elite level passers and have insane court vision, but Halliburton is much more on point when it comes to his passes, ball handling, where he rarely turns the ball over despite his high usage. Like, his turnover rate is one of the best in the league. He had a turnover percentage of less than 10% last season, while Giddey's current turnover percentage is at 17%. And the reason the Pacers' offense was so effective last season was because Halliburton, as their facilitator and floor general, was so good at taking care of the ball and limiting turnovers. Not only that, but Halliburton is a better defender, no surprises there. He's much better in the point of attack on defense and playing off-ball defense than Giddey is. And while Giddey has improved his shot greatly, he's now shooting it at 40% from three, Halliburton is a better and more consistent high-volume three-point shooter. So again, I don't say this to disparage Giddey because he's a great player. I think the Bulls got him on a great contract, but the front office cannot sit here and say, we've got our Halliburton, all we need is our Siakam, and we would be contenders. But let's say for a moment, okay, Giddey can become the player that Halliburton is over the next year or two by adding a guy like Anthony Davis, who I agree in a vacuum would fit nicely. Like, forget all the other circumstances outside of bringing in Anthony Davis, like how he fits the timeline, the max contract, and potential for injury, and the amount you would have to give up to get him in a trade. But in a vacuum, he is an ideal player for the Bulls to put alongside Giddey to really just spoon feed him the ball in the paint or go up and throw it down off a lob. But we all know you can't just look at things in a vacuum when constructing a team. You have to consider age and health as part of it. And the fact of the matter is, Siakam has been much more durable, more versatile as a scorer, and has shown higher impact overall than someone like Anthony Davis has, at least at this stage in AD's career, because prime AD was a beast, but those days are kind of gone now. And then the other thing, when it comes to believing you can replicate what the Pacers did, you also have to factor in their depth, the role players on that roster. And also, what about Miles Turner as well? I know he's no longer on the team and he kind of struggled in the playoffs, but he was a big piece of what they did and doing it so successfully and being that rim protector, that rim running lob threat big man who can also space the floor and knock down threes. Anthony Davis can't hit threes, not anymore anyway. He did in the bubble for a little bit, but has since stopped being able to shoot threes. So who is going to be your Miles Turner? And while yes, the Bulls have depth, they've got a deep bench, it has been one of their strengths, but is it going to match to the likes of Benedict Mathurin, Nembhard, Nesmith, Obi Toppin, guys who really came into their own, played their roles extremely well last season? Do the Bulls have those kind of guys as their role guys to round out the roster? Maybe. But again, it goes back to my first point. You can't just try and be another team because only that team knows how to be the best version of themselves. Just because you have similar type players doesn't mean it's going to translate the same way as another team was doing it. Yes, the Bulls like to get out and run, play fast, be physical, well, sort of, but getting out and running, trying to wear down their opponents by the fourth quarter, similar to what the Pacers have done last season, but believing that all you need is an Anthony Davis to be your Siakam when you already have your Halliburton and Josh Giddey is just such horrible logic. I can't even describe it. I really hope the front office doesn't actually believe this, or the content in the article addressing this point is just taken out of context, and that the Bulls know they have so much more work to do to get to title contention instead of just trying to emulate what a team did last year that got to the finals. Because if they truly do believe this and they make an aggressive trade for Anthony Davis, I'll probably have to crash out at that point, because after the Bulls finally got themselves out of being a bad team with no future and starting fresh with young players and having all their picks now to then set themselves back even further because of a dream to try and be like the Pacers, then yeah, I would lose my shit. Apologies for the language, I don't usually swear on here. Anyway, we'll see where things go, how things transpire as we get closer and closer to that unofficial start date to the trade season of December 15th, when most players around the league become trade eligible. But as more of these reports do come out, I am starting to fear that Anthony Davis to Chicago is becoming more and more of a real thing. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.